Well, guess what? We didn't record. So we're redoing the class and it's just not going to be as much fun because you won't be there. We promised. So here we go. We're going to start all over again and we're going to share our screen so that we can get started. Probably be a little bit shorter. These are the acorns and many of you have them as the kits. They're just these sweet little things made of velvet and silk ribbon and beads, and they're stuffed with wool roving. So they come in several different colorways. For instance, this is the sugar plum colorway, and this is the wintry colorway. They can really be in a bazillion different colors. So we're gonna, this is our sample that we're going to be making. Okay, so the first thing that you're going to do is take the pattern that comes with in the kit and tape it to a piece of chipboard so you can make a sturdy pattern out of it and cut that out using a good cardboard scissors so that you have something like this. And if you make two of them, it's just a little bit easier for you. I've reused these patterns over and over and over again, really to make all of those acorns and all of these step outs. So it's really, I do this for all of my pattern designs that I'm working on with this particular kind of technique. All right, so in your kit, you're going to have a piece of interfacing. This is a fusible knit interfacing. So one side has the adhesive on it, and you'll have several or one or several pieces of our hand-dyed silk velvet. So we're going to adhere the interfacing to the velvet. Now, one of the gals mentioned that there is a press cloth that is used for embroidery that you lay down and you put your embroidery right side down over the press cloth, and then you can press your embroidery, and that would work as well for something like velvet, so it doesn't crush the velvet a tremendous amount. So I'll just take a spray bottle and I actually spray the velvet a little bit first and kind of get it drying a little tiny bit. And then I lay the interfacing over the velvet and I spray it again. And then I take a press cloth. And I take a press cloth and I put the press cloth over the interfacing, because the interfacing can melt, and you just kind of do the work, and however long it takes for that to happen. Sometimes it, or you could glue it to the wrong side. You could also do that. But anyway, already making mistakes. Okay, anyway, you know what I mean, right? Okay, so pretend we're not as fiddly as all that. So you're going to have this piece of interfacing adhered to the velvet. All right, now take your hard pattern, lay it down, and trace the shape, trace your pattern shape all the way around. Okay, then we're going to cut out. At this out, you need two of those. We're going to cut it so that it's flush along this line and with a seam allowance along this line. So I don't usually even think about the seam allowance. I just do the work and just cut it out all the way around. So you will need two of these for each acorn. Okay, now the next thing we want to do is use our pattern to press a finished edge up, and the cardboard pattern is going to help us to do that. So I'm going to take my board again. I'm going to spray the edges, get my iron. And then you're going to press the edge up onto the cardboard. This is kind of a process that is used for applique. So a lot of you probably do that sort of thing. But you can see that the cardboard pattern really makes a difference. So you're going to do that until it looks really good. Okay, so we're going to end out with 2 of those, right? So now those 2 guys have to be sewn together. So we're starting with a needle and thread. So I'm using a milliner's size 10 needle. I'm using regular thread. It can either be cotton covered polyester or polyester. Yeah, it can be silk or whatever is your favorite thread, doesn't matter. It can actually also be decorative thread if you want. So I've doubled my thread and I'm going to condition the thread because the conditioning gives it a little bit of strength, but it also helps the thread to stop tangling up on you. So with this, I'm going to tie a knot at the end. Okay, and then what we're going to do is hide that knot inside the seam allowance so that we don't have to ever deal with it. So there's that, and then we're going to connect the 2 together. And you want to do this pretty invisibly. So this is the sort of thing that I would sit down and get comfortable and enjoy doing. So you're going to sew this entire seam together from here to here. It's a whip stitch. And you're going to cut your thread at this point and then come back down here, hide your knot again, and then whip stitch that whole edge. Okay, when you get to this point, don't cut the thread. All right, so we're going to end up with something like this. I've already started stuffing this piece. So there's your seam line there and there. And I have run a gathering stitch all the way around. So pretend that these were all sewn together. Well, a gathering stitch would just look something like this. So they're about 1/8 inch long stitches. And you would do that all the way around. This is why the milliner's needle is so awesome, because it can hold so much on the needle at one time. But you would have to go all the way around. See, I don't have the other part because I'm making it up. Make believe. All right, so I use wool roving to stuff. So this is what the wool roving looks like. And it comes from Dimensions. Wool roving has a tooth. So when you stuff with it, the roving sticks to each other. And it just is a much nicer thing to stuff with, especially if you're doing little things or doll making or, probably not a pillow because that would be a pain. Anyway, this came from Michael's and I ordered it online. It's a small amount, but it goes a long way. So you're gonna stuff and stuff and stuff, and you're just gonna keep stuffing till you think like, oh, it's stuffed enough, right? But when you get to the point where you say it's stuffed enough, it's not stuffed enough. So you have to keep stuffing. So now let's say we're as stuffed as we want to be. So now you're going to pull the threads so you can start closing the top end. And then there's when you do a gathering, there's a little hills and valleys so that the fabric or ribbon gathers into. So I'm going to go back around and grab the hills one more time at the original seam line. I have a knot in my thread, and I'm going to do that all the way around until I can pull the opening completely closed, and then I will tie it off. So I have to just thread this up again with a little needle. I'm going to go with a big needle because just for now. All right, so let's say we have this closed off, right? So the next thing is we want to do is to create the cap space or the cap line. So on the pattern, there's this little dotted line. So if you put that dotted line up onto the pattern and you mark it on either side, then you can take your thread go down to that space, take a little back stitch so that it'll cinch, and then just start like stitching around all the way around. These are just big stitches. And then you cinch that in. And then wrap your thread a couple of times around. And that creates the cap space. And you just tie off. Okay. So that's that. I would have actually stuffed this quite a bit more. It's kind of loose there. All right, the next step is to do our little crisscross hatching with the metallic thread. So I've put that somewhere, but where do you suppose I put that? Ah, I found it. Aha. Okay, so I kind of will do a little line marking. And so this is what we're after. We want to just draw these little metallic crisscrosses. It just gives it a little bit of sparkle. Now, this is not the best metallic floss, and some of you have really fantastic floss collection. So you won't offend me at all if you want to use your own metallic floss and not mine, but this keeps our kit price down. The first thing I'm going to do is lose that end. I did tie a knot up on the end, and then I'm going to take a little back stitch, and then I'm going to go all the way down to here. Take a stitch. And then take a little back stitch. And from there, I'm going to go up to here. So it's about 1/4 of an inch away. And take a little back stitch. And from there, I'm going to stitch down to here, another 1/4 of an inch away. And then over to our original spot. You can adjust your metallic threads as you go, take a little back stitch, and then just continue on until you have the entire thing, or all of the little crisscrossing lines done. All right, so the next thing we're going to do, Also, when it's time to tie off this sort of thing, I will just invisibly stitch to another location until I can uh, find a place to lose the thread. There's going to be lots of places to lose the thread on this little acorn. Okay, so pretend that the whole thing has been crisscrossed like, okay? All right, so the next step is to do the cap. So in your kit, you have 7mm ribbon, and you have 2.5 yards of it. And you want to cut that into 18-inch lengths. You want to use a size 22 or even a size 20 chenille needle. So that's what this is. I think this is a 22 actually. And don't use lengths that are longer than 18 inches. So this is not that, but we're going to pretend. We're going to pretend all the time. All right, so take and tie a tight knot at the end of the ribbon. You can trim off some of the excess and then start at the very center and move down to the cap line. And you need a needle nose pliers. Pull that through. So pull the knot through. It'll go a little bit past the opening. So then open up the ribbon, extend it back up to the top, stitch through the center and back down to the cap line, and get your needle nose pliers. And then do that again. Extend the ribbon, broaden the ribbon. Then come up to the center, stitch through the ribbon at the center, stitch down to the cap line, and pull through. And you're going to continue this until the entire cap is completely covered with ribbon. So let's say you have to tie off again, right? So you just are going to lose your thread in the cap somewhere, or lose your ribbon in the cap. Just lose it, lose it, lose it. It's going to be covered and you don't have to worry about it. Then that gets cut off and you continue until it's done. All right, so we're at this point then so far, right? So our cap is completely covered, and we have our oh, I have to show you how to do the little beads and sequins. Let's pretend on this piece right here. So if you were a piece of thread, where would you be? Okay, here we go. So usually I use beading thread for this, but we're gonna just use double thread at this point. Putting a knot in it. So I'm just going to show you just a simple method of how you do beads and sequins. So I'm going to stitch down to a place that I want to bead. I'm going to pick up a sequin. These are 3mm sequins, and I'm going to pick up a seed bead. In your kit, you have 11mm and 13 and 15mm sequins. So I'm stitching around the seed bead and through the center of the hole for the sequin hole again. And then I stitch down to my next location and pull that taut. So let's show that again. Pick up a sequin, let it meet the fabric, pick up a seed bead, stitch around the seed bead and through the center of the sequin, and then stitch to your next location, wherever that may be. And then as needed, rethread or lose the thread somewhere where it won't be found. Okay, so you're going to do that so that all the cross marks are done and you have it along the side and at the tip. Okay, now it's time to move on to the mountain folding. So mountain folding is a ribbon work technique that I love. So it's for your kits. We're going to do this mountain folding technique with the 13mm ribbon. It is not the easiest technique to do, but it definitely is a cool technique. So this flower, which is from our flower therapy line, or this technique for this flower, is a form of mountain folding. And what you can see is that you create loops that overlap continuously. So for this particular flower, the outer layer is the 32mm ribbon and the inner layer is the 13mm ribbon. I always lightly spray starch the 13 and 32mm ribbon when I'm doing ribbon work. This is another version of the mountain folded technique, as is this. So this is from our Tokens of Love product line or design line or whatever you want to call it. Okay, so these also are mountain folded flowers. So you can do it with 5 folds, you can do it with 25 folds. It doesn't matter. It matters just what it needs to be for the technique. So this is the 13mm ribbon that comes in your kit, and we're going to give it a little light spray starch. So all I do is take the ribbon, and this is just your basic grocery store spray starch. Spray the ribbon lightly, and then press it dry. Oops. Oh, the iron turned off on me. So you just keep pressing it till it's dry. And what it will do will be to give the ribbon some body, which is what it needs. It makes it a little bit easier to work with. It makes your flowers have more value. They look more valuable when they're made with a little bit of spray starch on the ribbon. So I'm going to start by showing you an exaggerated version of the technique. So this is the 32mm ribbon. Whenever we ship our kits, we always cut the ribbon at an angle so that it only frays but will not unravel. So we're going to use that angle. So you have the ribbon going up at a diagonal, and we're going to make the letter M. So you fold the ribbon down, and then you fold the ribbon up, and then you put a pin to pin the overlaps or the folds. Fold the ribbon down so that it intersects right there. Fold the ribbon up and keep that diagonal angle and pin. Fold the ribbon down. There's the overlap. Fold the ribbon up and pin. And this you would just continue to do. You always have to end with the ribbon so that the seam allowances are both facing down. That's an exaggerated version. But you're going to be working with this size ribbon. So for this technique, I used larger pins. For this one, for the smaller ribbon, I used applique. And they help to keep the thread from getting caught in the pin because they're little. They are a little hard to use sometimes. So it's the same thing all over again. Take the ribbon, fold it into the letter M, and pin the overlaps together. Up, down, up, pin. So I have pinned most of this already. We have this going on. Then the next step, you're actually going to have a piece that is this big. And this, I've already started sewing this piece. But I want to show you, it forms a circle all by itself. I didn't do anything to make that happen. But I want to overlap these ends so that I have a continuous pattern. So I'm holding it like this, and I'm going to fold it like this so that I can continue the mountain in the same pattern. And this is how you get the continuous folds going on. That's what it looks like, smaller, and this is what it will look like big. So use up every last drop that you have of that 13 millimeter ribbon in your kit. And all we do is gather stitch the ribbon along the lower edge. So the lower edge is what I call the lower edge the edge with the seam allowance. That's where when you were folding the ribbon, the lower edge, that's the seam allowance edge, that's the lower edge. So we just continue all the way around. And I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. All the way around. As I pass a spot, I'm going to remove the pins and then pull the thread through. One thing that's important when you're doing this technique is to grab all the layers both on the top and on the bottom. So sometimes that's a little hard to do, like right there. And the reason why you want to do that is so that all the little mountains behave. So if you don't want your mountains to behave, that's fine. They just look better when they behave. Okay, and then pull through. So we create this little ruffle. Now, let's say you don't want to mess with this, like it's making you crazy. You just don't want to do it. I'm okay with that. So instead, you can just turn this into a little ruffle. So let's do that right now. So let's just make a little ruffle. One tip when you're doing ribbon work is no knots. You don't want knots when you have ribbon work. So you're going to take 3 whip stitches in place before you start sewing. And that locks the thread. And then you can just gather stitch. So I'm just kind of pushing the ribbon onto the needle rather than sewing the needle through the ribbon. So that's a ruffle instead of a mountain fold. So you can see that there's kind of a big difference in the way they look, but either way works. And I certainly don't want you to be crazy. This is what the ruffle would look like. I might make it a little bit smaller, actually, and I would do that by folding the ribbon down a bit before sewing. But I love the mountain fold technique, and it doesn't scare me. So here we go. Here it is. And now this gets sewn onto this piece. And I'm making the seam allowance go upwards. So as soon as I have it all nice and snug, I'm going to secure the ruffle in place. And then I'm going to adjust those ruffles. Once it's in place, I'm going to adjust this. So once I have adjusted the ruffle, then I'll go through and secure the ruffle to the cap line all the way around. And then it's time to start beading this once this is all secured in place. So we're gonna pretend that we secured that in place. And now it's time to bead this. So there are 3 layers of beads and sequins along the cap line. And you can do more. You can do more. You can do as much as you want. You can use up every last bead in the kit if you want. And I know some of you will, and you know who you are. So we're just going to do the same thing like we did for beading the little cross marks. You grab a sequin, scooch it down to the cap line, grab a seed bead, and secure it again, and secure the sequin in place by going around the seed bead and through the sequin again. I think somebody asked me, can you do more than 1 bead at a time or 1 sequin at a time? And the answer is totally yes. If you have a special technique that you like, go for it. It's really just to add a little bit of sparkle. So however you want to do it is fine by me. Don't think about what beads or sequins you're using. Just go for it. You're going to do that all the way around until you have your 3 whole layers or more done. So the next thing we need to do is make the little loop, hanger loop, or the ornament loop. So that's done by using embroidery floss. So we're going to make our own cording essentially. So in your kit, you have 27 inches of embroidery floss. And we're using all 6 strands of a cotton stranded floss. You can use 2 colors, 1 color, 3 colors, 4 colors, 8 colors, however many colors you want. You can use 2mm ribbon, 3.5mm ribbon. Imagine you could use 7mm ribbon. 2. And I'm going to start by tying a knot. I've laid the 2 shades of floss side by side, and I'm tying a knot. And just tape it down. Then I'm going to extend that out and just start twisting the ribbon, the floss. Keep twisting, 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 twisting. What happened? It's nothing. Don't worry about it, okay, people? It's nothing. So we're just going to keep twisting until, honestly, we're trying to remember what the heck we said. Until it starts kinking up on itself. It has to kink up a lot. See, maybe a little tiny bit more. I figured that. So, butt out. This is between us. Okay. Oh, shoot. That's what I get for being such a dummy. Honestly, honest to gosh. Okay, so do it again. Oh, actually, it's okay. Okay, so fold the floss back over on itself so that the ends can meet and the floss will twist up on itself. So then remove the tape and twist the last little bit again and tie all of that together in a knot. That, so you have your own cording, so you can imagine you can make any cording any color. Such a cool technique. I love this technique. Okay, so now we're going to form a loop with a ribbon, and we want the loop to be with the floss, and we want the loop to be about 3 inches long. So right there, I'm going to tie the floss into a knot. Pull that tight. And then cut it off. Cut the knot off. And I'm going to put a little bit of glue on the tip so that it kind of can adhere. So this is Aleene's Original Formula Tacky Glue. It's my favorite glue to use. It's good with fabric and fiber related things. It marries layers together. So you don't need any other glue. I love this glue. All right, so I'm gonna, I think that looks okay. I didn't put too much on this time. And then we're just gonna take and position the cord or the loop, and then just kind of try to push it down a little bit into the center. So it really is easier with the scissors, a little bit. And then you just wipe your scissors off. And if there's a little bit too much excess glue, just dab it, get rid of it. This really has to dry completely. You want it to be dead center. Okay, so that's our loop. And then what we're gonna do is bead the loop. So pretend that this was entirely beaded already. And this technique just, it just takes a while. And basically all you do is you have to form a foundation first. So this is what the finished piece looks like. You have to form a foundation around the loop and through the loop until you can add the pearls to it. So sometimes you need like 10 seed beads. You can grab a sequin or two along the way. Don't think about the colors you're using or whether you're using a sequin or a bead. Just do it. Don't overthink it, because you won't be able to tell a pattern at all. And then you stitch through the loop to the other side. Take a bite and secure that. So you want to be able to kind of like span the space with your seed beads, and then do that again and continue doing it until you have enough done to where you can add the pearl to the mix. And the pearls are added at the very, very end. So you want to really build it up. And you can dot little sequins around the top too. And that is the whole process. So I hope you've learned a lot, and our next class is going to be on the clovers, our next free class. We're really enjoying doing this, offering these free classes, and we're enjoying seeing your faces too. So the next class on the Acorns will be next month, and we'll announce it in our February newsletter, which is why you need to be on our newsletter list. Okay, thank you, and I'll see you next time.